My phone buzzed with a message from Sarah during a board meeting. Mom's hosting her 60th birthday at the Grand Haven Hotel. The text read, "You're not on the VIP guest list." It stung, especially since my husband James had agreed with her decision. Keeping my expression calm, I ended the call with our partners in Tokyo as I hovered over Sarah's text. The irony was almost comical. If it weren't so disheartening, Margaret, my mother-in-law, had no clue I had developed a portfolio of luxurious hotels, including the Grand Haven, from scratch over the past 10 years. To her, I was merely the decorative spouse of her prized son. "Miss Chen, the Singapore team is ready," Andrew, my assistant, informed me. I acknowledged him and shifted my focus back to work, pushing thoughts of the party aside. Despite what my in-laws thought, I helmed an empire, not a life of leisure. Misconceptions are quick to form but tough to repair. When I met James 5 years ago, I was already thriving professionally, but I kept my work life under wraps. My business operated under my Chinese surname, Chen, while personally I used James's surname, Williams, avoiding any deliberate deceit. Margaret's view of me had been clear from the start. "A girl from nowhere," she remarked loudly enough for me to hear, highlighting my lack of connections and formal education without ever inquiring about me, and I never corrected her. Seeking harmony, James often excused her actions, saying, "It's just her way. She'll warm up to you eventually." Yet 5 years on, I was still awaiting that warmth. After concluding my calls, I revisited Sarah's message. The event, a grand celebration for 300, was set for this weekend at my flagship hotel. Margaret had collaborated with my events crew for months, oblivious that I was the proprietor. She liaised with the managers, leveraging James's name for preferential treatment. "Andrew," I called, "get me Thomas from the Grand Haven." Thomas, my hotel manager, picked up promptly. "Miss Chen, I was about to reach out regarding Mrs. Williams's party. Her requests have been numerous," he said. I could easily imagine. "Let me hear them." The list was long, demanding the presidential suite at concessional rates due to her connection to the owner. She wanted sole use of the VIP lounge for a private post-party soiree, where I remained unwelcome despite our familial ties. "She mentioned you might attend," Thomas mentioned cautiously, and specified seating you at the back by the kitchen doors. Typical. I accessed the guest list. It included Hartford's finest, from judges to politicians to distinguished lineages, those Margaret aspired to impress, ironically. Individuals I regularly interacted with in boardrooms and charitable endeavors, unbeknownst to her. "Keep her arrangements intact," I instructed Thomas, "but notify the security detail. And ensure Vincent is bartending the VIP lounge." Vincent, our top mixologist, also knew my true role. The day of the party dawned brightly, and James left early that day to assist his mother, leaving me to prepare alone. He mentioned, avoiding my gaze, "Mom thinks it's preferable if we arrive separately, you get it, right?" I understood the situation all too well. Carefully, I selected my attire, a simple black Chanel dress, understated yet elegant, recognizing there was no need to compete with Margaret's inevitable opulence. Arriving precisely on time, I entered the grand ballroom, which I had contributed to designing 3 years prior. Margaret had truly outdone herself with ice sculptures, champagne fountains, and a string quartet performing in the corner. She stood near the entrance, radiant in a red designer gown, James loyally by her side. "Oh, you came," she remarked upon noticing me, her smile lacking warmth. "The general seating is over there. James, darling, help me greet the mayor." I observed them depart, fully aware of the tension in James's shoulders. Understanding he was well aware of his mother's misdeeds, but lacked the resolve to confront her without a nudge. I headed to my designated table, strategically placed next to the bustling kitchen doors, where a few other marginalized guests, including second cousins Margaret tolerated and a neighbor she felt obligated to invite, already sat. Avoiding eye contact to steer clear of associating with the marginalized daughter-in-law. The evening unfolded precisely according to Margaret's orchestration. Dinner was served, speeches delivered, And then came the announcement about the exclusive VIP gathering in the private lounge, invitation granted solely to those with golden wristbands. Margaret trilled into the microphone, "James, make sure all our special guests find their way upstairs." I watched as a significant portion of the attendees, golden wristbands gleaming, proceeded to the elevators, James casting a remorseful look in my direction before joining them. Perfectly timed, I retrieved my phone and texted Thomas, signaling the initiation of Phase 2. The ensuing hour became an exemplar of subtle vengeance. First, the air conditioning in the VIP lounge inexplicably malfunctioned, exuding heat instead of cool air. Then, premium liquor bottles mysteriously ran out each time Margaret's preferred labels were ordered. All minor inconveniences, nothing conspicuous. I remained at my table adjacent to the kitchen, indulging in champagne and observing. 3, 2, 1. Right on cue, Margaret emerged from the elevator, her demeanor flushed with indignation and heat, demanding, "Where's the manager? This is unacceptable. Do you know who I am?" Thomas appeared, his professional demeanor unruffled. "Is there a problem, Mrs. Williams?" "Everything is a problem, the air conditioning, the drinks, the service." "I want to speak to the owner immediately," Margaret insisted, her tone brazen. Thomas responded serenely, "Miss Chen is actually present tonight." Margaret's expression turned victorious. "Finally, where is she?" I rose from my seat by the kitchen, smoothing my dress. "Right here, Margaret." The silence that enveloped the ballroom was palpable. Margaret gaped at me, speechless as a fish out of water. James, who had accompanied his mother downstairs, turned ashen, while Margaret stammered, That's impossible. You're just what?" I interjected softly. "A trophy wife? A girl from nowhere? The owner of this hotel and the entire Grand Haven chain. All of the above, actually." The whispers began. Of course, half the attendees had known me as Chen, the businesswoman. They were merely connecting the dots now. "Miss Chen," Thomas declared conspicuously, ensuring everyone heard. "Shall I summon the repair for the VIP lounge's air conditioning?" "No need," I replied calmly. "I believe the issue is stepping back down here." In front of the assembled crowd, I announced, "Drinks are on the house. Let's consider this my birthday present to my mother-in-law." What followed was a chaotic hour, but it was the kind of chaos I intended. Margaret's exclusive VIP group quickly dissolved as guests flocked back to the main ballroom, many eager to greet me as Chen, the CEO they had known for years, rather than just James's wife. James walked up to me, his expression a mix of shock and what seemed like admiration. "Why didn't you ever mention it?" he asked. "You never asked," I replied casually. "Too caught up defending your mother's assumptions about me." He winced visibly. At that moment, Lily, the mayor's wife, approached us. "Miss Chen, I didn't realize you were married to James. You must join our charity gala planning next week." I smiled and replied, "Certainly, though I would prefer not to be seated near the kitchen." Slightly embarrassed, she nodded, recalling she'd seen me earlier among the VIPs. As evening turned to night, I noticed Margaret sitting alone at what used to be my table, lost in her thoughts. The irony wasn't lost on me as I took a seat next to her. "The service here is surprisingly good," I remarked, even with its proximity to the kitchen. Margaret turned to face me, her age visible despite her makeup. "You've been laughing at me this whole time," she said, her voice bitter. "Not at all, Margaret," I countered. "I've been working non-stop, building something substantial. Exactly what you always wanted James to do." I stood up and wished her a happy birthday. "The presidential suite is complimentary. Family discount," I added, walking away just as I heard her sharp intake of breath. My phone buzzed. It was Andrew with updates on our Dubai project. It was time to dive back into work. The story wasn't over, naturally. Fallout awaited. Explanations were essential. Relationships would need to be mended or ended. But for now, I'd given Margaret what she truly wanted, a memorable birthday party. Just not in the way she intended. The morning after the party, I awoke to 37 missed calls. Most were from James, who hadn't returned home. a few from Sarah likely checking on the aftermath, and one from Margaret herself. Ignoring them, I opened my laptop. The Asian markets were closing and decisions awaited. Being publicly unmasked as Chen meant I could no longer keep my personal and professional lives separate. Time to get ahead of the narrative. Andrew, I said upon his answering. We must issue a press release. Let's put a face to the Grand Haven brand. Another buzz, James this time. I answered him. Where are you? His voice sounded rough, maybe from sleep or drinking. In my home office, where I am every morning at 7, I replied. You have a home office? His disbelief was palpable. For 5 years. He never questioned what lay behind those double doors in our East Wing, nor wondered why I disappeared there daily. We need to talk, he insisted. We do, I confirmed, but first, I have a board meeting. Come to my office, my real one, at noon. Your office? He echoed, as if the concept was unfamiliar. At the Chen Industries building, downtown, 37th floor. Tell reception your wife expects you. I hung up before he could respond, relishing the thought that he would now have to use the words, my wife, to reach me. The morning blurred into a series of meetings and damage control as news spread rapidly. My public relations team had been receiving numerous calls from business magazines curious about how Hart's most accomplished female CEO maintained such a low profile following the previous night's revelation. I was well aware of this when my assistant informed me that Mr. Williams had arrived. I gestured to let him in. As James entered my office, he seemed like a person stepping into unknown territory, taking in the floor-to-ceiling windows, the modern art on the walls, and the awards that I never bothered to display at home. His casual attire seemed out of place amid the corporate elegance. You've been busy, he finally remarked. For the last 15 years, yes, I replied, indicating the chair opposite my desk. Though you never noticed. He sat down, running a hand through his disheveled hair, and began with the issue that was always foremost for him, his mother. Mom's a mess. Margaret's pride is hurt. I corrected him. But she'll get over it. She claims you humiliated her intentionally, trying to set her up to fail at her birthday party. She set herself up by trying to embarrass me. I simply chose not to play the part she assigned. James shifted uncomfortably in his seat. You could have told me about all this, he said. The same way you informed me about being excluded from the VIP section. He looked properly contrite. That was wrong. I should have defended you, he admitted. Yes, you should have. I agreed, but you never do. It makes me wonder if knowing about my success would have changed anything, or if it would have just given you a different excuse for allowing your mother to treat me poorly. Just then, my intercom buzzed, announcing a call with Tokyo in 5 minutes. I have a company to run, James. We can resume this discussion at home. He stood, seemingly at a loss. When will you be home? He asked. When work is done, as always, I replied. Finally, understanding dawned on him. During the times he assumed I was at yoga, shopping, or lunching with friends, I had actually been here, building an empire within the role his family had carved out for me. The following weeks were a harsh awakening for the Williams family. Unable to face her social circle, Margaret fled to her sister's house in Florida. Sarah, who had always been more humane than the others, reached out to apologize for her years of condescension. I just assumed, she confessed. Because Mom said. A lot of people assumed, I replied. Their mistake. The business press had a field day with my story. Hidden CEO. The woman who built an empire in secret read one headline. Trophy wife or business mogul. The double life of Lily Chin Williams declared another. I granted a single interview to a renowned business journal. When asked why I kept my professional life separate, I explained, success speaks for itself. I didn't need to announce it. The article went viral. James relocated to the guest room, and we found ourselves suspended in limbo, not entirely separated, not entirely together. He began attending therapy, striving to understand his role in enabling his mother's behavior while grappling with the realization that his trophy wife had outstripped him in success. Margaret returned from Florida after a month, noticeably subdued. She requested a meeting through James. I'll see her at the hotel, I decided, in the VIP lounge. She arrived punctually, dressed with her usual elegance, but devoid of her customary arrogance. The service brought drinks without a word, champagne for me, water for her. "You've redecorated," she observed, taking in the lounge. Yes, I noted. The entire hotel has. Amid the renovation process, with our expansion ongoing, Margaret flinched at the use of "we." "I suppose you're looking for an apology from me," she said. "No, Margaret, no apology is needed," I responded. "What you need is to understand something crucial. I was never the woman you thought I was. Your son married a CEO, not a trophy. If you wish to maintain a relationship with us, you must accept this reality." "And if I cannot?" Margaret asked. "Then you'll miss more than just VIP access to my hotels," I stated. With a shaky breath, she asked, "Is James in therapy?" "Yes. Because of me and more importantly himself," I replied. "He's finally confronting his role in our relationship dynamics." Margaret stirred her water, listening to the clink of ice against glass. "And will you forgive him?" she inquired. "That depends on James, whether he wants to be a true partner or remain just a son who hasn't matured," I explained. As the echoes of renovation reverberated through the building, providing a fitting soundtrack to our conversation about rebuilding, Margaret finally admitted, "I looked you up. Your company, achievements, charitable work." She hesitated, adding, "The scholarship program for underprivileged girls. I see the work you're doing." I responded, "Someone has to help these girls achieve their dreams," noticing her recognition of her earlier dismissive tone. As she departed, she turned back, stating, "For what it's worth, I was wrong about you." "I know," I smiled. "I've always known." Later that evening, I found James in my home office, truly observing it for the first time. He was examining our wedding photo on my desk. "I was proud that day," he admitted, not meeting my gaze. "Proud that someone as beautiful as you had chosen me, never thinking about your other accomplishments." With his eyes turning red, he confessed, "Now, I'm ashamed of how I allowed Mom to treat you and how little I knew about my own wife." He swallowed. "But I'm mostly in awe of your strength and everything you've accomplished." "I feel undeserving," he added. "Probably not," I concurred, "but being deserving isn't the point, James. Supporting me and being a real partner is." "Can you do that?" He nodded. "I want to try," gesturing to my desk. "Tell me about your company, your work, everything I neglected for years." Taking my seat, I watched him settle into the guest chair, ready to listen for once. "It began 15 years ago, with one small hotel and a dream." I began. 3 months after Margaret's contentious birthday, we hosted a new event at the Grand Haven, the launch of our Asian operations and the announcement of a Business Women's Scholarship Foundation. James stood beside me as I delivered my speech, his hand assuring on my back. Margaret was in the audience, no longer in the VIP section, but not by the kitchen either, a small sign of progress. Sarah had joined my board, breaking free from Margaret's oversight, finding her own voice. And finally, I was Chen Williams, CEO of Grand Haven Hotels, a woman who built her success one careful brick at a time. The trophy wife was gone. In her place was the empire builder who had been underestimated, turning assumptions to advantages and silence to strength. I realized that revenge isn't just about achieving success. It's about doing it on your own terms.